Set apart is your name. And humbly I seek your face. Yahuah, Yahuah.
Hallelujah. I want to say shalom to you all, Mashbaka. I want to welcome each and every one on this evening to Foundational Facts Fellowship. We're going to go ahead and get started. Shalom to you, family. Shalom and greetings to everyone. In the great name of Yahuah, great to see you all on this evening. I want to greet the family here on Fuse, the family on YouTube, the family on Facebook, those who may be joining us from these various venues. And to those joining us both here in the States and around the world, we greet you in the name of Yahuah. I want to say welcome to all of the family here on this evening. Well, it's another Foundational Facts Fellowship. Excited about being here and for yet another opportunity to dig into Yahuwah's Word with the Mashpaka. And so we have for this evening, we have one question in particular that has been lingering for the past 2 weeks or so, and we have not had a chance to get to it, and so we hope to cover that question this evening, and that's the question concerning Yahuchanan 3:16, John 3:16. And so we're going to be looking at that this evening, and also we have a question also from Uyakara, chapter 16 and verse 8. Aki William had asked if we could take a look at that, and so for this evening we're going to be looking at those questions. Question number 1 is it really true? Is it really true, or what is Yahuchanan, John 3:16 saying when it says, for Yahuwah so loves the world, right, that he gave his only begotten son. This is the translation. They say, for quote unquote God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That's the translation. Well, we're gonna examine that this evening. We're gonna dig into it. We know right off the bat that there are problems with that, but we're gonna dig into that text on this evening. We're gonna examine the claim against the scriptures and to see whether or not Yahuwah truly does love the world, whether or not Yahuwah has made any promise to save the world. You see, whether or not he has sent his message to the world. So we're going to be looking into all of that on this evening. But as we prepare to begin, excuse me guys, as we prepare to begin, we're going to go ahead and open up in prayer on this evening, and then we're going to get started. Praise Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Abba Yahuwah, we give you thanks and praise. We thank you for this opportunity to come together in your name once again, to seek your truth, to seek the truth, the whole truth, and absolutely nothing but the truth. to seek your contextual truth. And so, Father, we ask that you would barak this time. We pray that your great name would be esteemed. We pray, Yahuah, that your word would go forth, your truth would go forth, and that it would, and that your people, those that you have given ears, that they will hear, and those that you have given eyes, that they will see. Father, let us not continue to be led astray. Let us not continue to be misguided, Father, whether it be by tradition, vain traditions, and the lies of men. But may we walk in your truth. May we walk according to your truth. Give us a hunger, a thirst, a passion for your truth, Yahuah. I pray that we would hunger and thirst after you, Father. And as we hunger and as we do thirst, I pray, Yahuah, that you would satisfy us. Help us to drink from that well from which when we drink, we will never thirst again. Help us to drink from the well of living water. Help us to drink from you, Yahuah. So satisfy us, satisfy our hearts with good things, I pray. In Yahuwah's name, Aman. Praise Yahuah. Hallelujah. Yeah. Praise Father. Once again, I say greetings to you, Mashpaka. A delight indeed it is to be here on this evening. We give Yahuwah praise, honor, and esteem for yet another opportunity to be assembled in his name. One of the things I didn't do, let me try to do that, is to get YouTube on my screen. So bear with me just for a moment, if you would, family, while I do that. Get YouTube on my screen. So the question that we're looking at, again, we're looking at a couple questions this evening for Foundational Facts Fellowship. One of those questions being, did Yahuwah promise to save the world? Did Yahuwah promise salvation to the world? You see, did he promise salvation to the world? Or what exactly did he promise to the nations? You see, is he committed to all nations? Or is he committed to only one nation? And those who would adopt the constitution of that nation, so to speak. And so we're going to be looking at these questions on this evening. We're also going to be looking at questions concerning Uyakara. That's Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 8, where it speaks of Atzatzal. And you know, I've seen teachings that says that Azazel there is in reference to Shaitan, or in reference to a fallen one. And so we're going to be looking at that here on this evening also. Let me take a moment to greet all of the family. I want to say shalom to Arakut G on joining us via YouTube on this evening. Arakut G Livia. Also want to say shalom to Papa Thin. Shalom to you, and also want to say shalom to Akut Anitra and to Akut Carmen. I greet you, family, in the name of Yahuwah. To Araki Urban Street, I say shalom to you, Aki, and of course to my Akut Amunah. Greetings to you, Akut, in the great name of Yahuwah. To Akut Sharon, I say shalom to you, Akut Sharon. And turning my attention to Fuse, let me take a moment here to greet the family on Fuse. And so I want to say shalom on this evening. Want to say shalom to Akut Yolanda. Wonderful to see you, Akut Yolanda. And I want to send my greetings and love also to my Aki Yaram Yahu. It is great to see and to know that you're here, family. Also want to say shalom to Akut Sharia. Greetings to you, Akut. To Aki John. I want to say shalom to you, Aki. To Akut Mary. Shalom. And to Akut Mahalia, I greet you, Akut, in the name of Yahuwah. To my Aki Keith, greetings, Aki. Great to see you as always. To Akut Amunah, again there, shalom, Akut. And Akut Al Yashua, greetings to you, Akut. Wonderful to see you. Akut Adelaide, greetings to you, Akut. Wonderful to see you as always. To Akut Carmen and Akut Sharia, shalom to you, family. To Aki Willie Al Yahu, I greet you, Aki, in the name of Yahuwah. And also to my Akut Jeanette. To the families and to those whose names are not represented on the screen, greetings to you in Yahuwah's name. Praise Yahuwah. Well, family, I'm gonna get to these questions, these two questions, and and try to make space for any other questions there might be among the family, because Foundational Facts Fellowship is really about creating space, creating an opportunity for questions and comments that we otherwise would not get to during our regular weekly fellowship. And so it's really more so it's intended to be more of an open mic format. Excuse me, family. It's intended to be more of an open mic format. And so I'm gonna try to get through these questions so we can open up the mic to any other questions or comments there might be. Okay, and so without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and what I'd like to do on this evening is go to the first, the one that has been lingering for a couple of weeks. Trevin have been asking me if I would respond, if I could, speak on this text for the past couple of weeks. He's not here on this evening. Hopefully, he'll be able to go back and listen to the recording, or he might be here a little bit later. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to address that on this evening from Yahuah, John chapter 3 and verse 16. Okay, so let's see where we begin. Let me pull it up on the screen. Oops, my thing is not cooperating as well as I'd like for it to cooperate. Okay, we're going to go to Yahuah 3:16. Now, as we go to Yahuah 3:16, this is something that we have talked about in the past, and I want to remind everyone. We did, you know what, I accidentally deleted all those recordings. I was trying to kind of clean up Fuse, and I'd forgotten about those recordings that I still intended to make public. Recordings of our research on the new writings. There's one that I posted, one of those recordings that's posted on YouTube, but there was more that I intended to post. I'm sorry, family. I've got to get out of this tiresome mode here. But there was more that I intended to post, and I didn't get a chance to post them. And I went to clean up Fuse and didn't remember that those recordings were a part of the batch that was there, and I accidentally deleted them. But I did intend to go back and to get them posted to YouTube. But we spent some time doing some research on the new writings and the history of the scriptures, the history of the New Testament, so to speak, and looking at the history of the scriptures. And so what we found in our research is that the new writings have absolutely been tampered with, and the Christian translators, the Christian pagan translators, they certainly did a whole lot to twist truth, to twist the scriptures, because what they esteemed was paganism. You see, what they esteemed was paganism, but what they did was they used the scriptures as a political ploy or a political football, just like politicians today do with what they call hot button issues. Whenever an election season comes around, everybody begin to talk about abortion or health care, or something that they know that it will get some people riled up. And so Constantine and his band of brothers did the same thing even back then, and so because they had a large population of Yasharal living among them, because they had went into the land and taken Yasharal captive, because Yahuah commanded it to be so. They went into the land and took Yasharal captive because Yasharal was being disobedient against Yahuah. and they were doing the things that Yahuah had commanded them not to do, and so hence the curses came upon them. And so they were allowed to go into the land, to tear down the walls of the city, and to burn the city, and to take Yashar captive, you see. And so as a result of that captivity, you have, and even before that captivity, you had people of Yashar who in some cases willingly went and lived among the Romans and the Greeks, you see, because they despised their own way and esteemed the pagan ways of the other nations, and so they took it upon themselves to go and to live among the other nations, to live among the pagans, and to worship as the pagans worshipped. And so they developed quite a community in those nations, and they became a very active part of that society, and even the political life of that society. And so there came a point where Constantine, any sound? Can anyone hear me, family? Nobody's hearing me? Wow, what's okay? All right, family. Well, yeah, it's not your mics. I believe it's just fuse and the frequency. Yes, but and so Constantine, because he wanted to gain political ground and political power, and to get as many people on his side as possible, what he did was he took the scriptures, pretended as if he was for them, but in reality he was only using it as a political ploy. And so what he did was he married the scriptures with his pagan ways. And of course, Constantine was a sun worshiper. And so in that marrying of the scriptures, they wrote stuff that didn't exist in the original text. They put it in and say that this is a part of the scriptures. Concerning the tithe that we spoke about yesterday, the Catholic Church, even to institute the tithe, right, to change, to tell the people that the tithe is no longer produce but it's money, they even went as far as to fabricate letters, and they would put it on their altar in their churches, and then in the morning the priest would go in after they had planted the letter there overnight. The priest would go in, and then he would run back out in astonishment, fake astonishment that is though, with this letter in his hand, and they would claim that these are letters from heaven. And the letters would tell the people that the tithe is no longer produce and so such the like, but that it's money, and that you should bring your money to the church, you see. So this is some of the things that the church would do, and they spared no expense when it came to deceiving the people, you see. So they've wrote many things into YouTube is offline. Oh, sorry, let me check into that very quickly here, family. Our system's really kind of acting funny here this evening. Bear with me just for a second. YouTube is offline. Okay. Let's see, YouTube. Strangely, it's telling me that it's live. Do me a favor, family. If you could go out, if you're on YouTube, go out and then go back in. And see what happens. I'm going to try to refresh my screen and see if it will come back for me. It's telling me that it's broadcasting, but don't seem to be. Oh wait, let's see now. It's broadcasting, but okay. All right, so just go back out, family. Just go back out and come back into YouTube, and you should find it to be active. That's what I just did, and it seemed to be working. So if it went offline for you, just exit and go back to the broadcast. Okay? All right. Uh, okay, to the Akut Anitra. It might be a local thing. It might be that you had a dropped connection and so it's telling you that, but in reality it's not. Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, so they have really and truly spared no expense when it comes to deceiving the people. They have spared no expense when it comes to deceiving the people. They really have spared no expense. So, there are things in the new writings. Well, if anyone, so let me just say this. You have a lot of people out there who say that you shouldn't read the new writings, what the Christians have dubbed the New Testament, because it's a fraud, that it's made up. And the fact of the matter is that not all of the writings, not everything in the so-called New Testament is made up. It really isn't. You see, there are letters. The new writings, they're letters from our people, you see, from the taught ones, written to a scattered people waking up. And when we study them contextually, what we find is that, with the exception of those things that Christianity have twisted, there is nothing new in them. All of it points back to Torah and the prophets. There is truly nothing new in them, you see. And so if one should say, well, they have been messed with, so therefore you shouldn't read them, then the fact of the matter is that they're not the only thing that have been messed with. Because the so-called, what they call the Old Testament, that too have been messed with. That is why when you pick up the King James or any of these many other translations, you will not find the name of the Creator in it. Do you think that it's only the name that they have messed with? No, it's not only the name that they have messed with. They have messed with a whole lot of things in these writings. And because they have messed with so much in these writings, and because there are many people in church who, it's upstairs, I think I left it. And because there's many people in church who don't realize that there's a difference between the Bible and the scriptures, that's one of the main reasons why it's so difficult reaching them with the truth. Because when you try to tell them that the Bible is not the scriptures, then right then and there, they begin to rip their clothes and they begin to shout blasphemy. How could you say that? You see. Now, you tell them the Bible is not the scriptures and they get upset. You see. And because of that, they can't hear anything else. But the truth of the matter is, you must come to an understanding that the Bible is really not the scriptures. You see, the Bible is a European book. The Bible is a Christian European book. A corrupt translation of scripture. The scriptures is an Eastern text, you see, is an African text, the scriptures, you see. But when you try to tell people these things, they for people who have been duped and bamboozled by Christianity, then it's a turn off to them. But we've got to be able to get past that and to hear the facts, right? So with that said, the reason why I say all of that is to say that there are many things in the writings, family, in translation. There are many things in translation that have really been messed with, you see, that have really been messed with. They have written in, for example, in the book of Mark, chapter 9, from chapter 9 onwards, I believe there are 16 chapters in Mark. But from chapter 9 onwards, that is not found in any of the oldest text found. The only place those chapters are found are in text that is known to have been written around 400 CE, 400 of the Common Era. And so if it was written around 400 CE, remember now that Mark is supposed to be a text, the book of Mark is supposed to be a text that was around during the time of Mashiach. But you have several chapters that only came into existence from all research account, only came into existence around 400 CE, 400 years of the Common Era. So who wrote them? Who added them? Who put them there? It had to be the people that were in control at that time, and that was the Catholic Church. You have, for example, in the book of Yahuah chapter 28 and verse 19, you have a verse that says, Go ye therefore into all the world, baptizing them in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Ghost. That verse is not found in any of the older text of the book of Yahuah. It came during the Christian period. Who put it there? The Christians did. Why did they put it there? For the promotion of the Trinity. Okay? And so as we study the translations, we will continue to find things that contradict what's in the foundational writings. You see, we'll continue to find things that contradict. Why are they there? Why do you find those things that contradict? Not because Shaul wrote them, not because Kaffa wrote them, not because Timothy wrote them, not because any of these people wrote them, but because the Christian church, the pagan translators, wrote them in. Okay, that's why you find some of these things. Now, I say all that as we prepare to go to the book of Yahuah to remind you, family, that again, you can't believe everything you read in translation. You simply cannot believe everything you read in translation. And I'm going to give you an example here from Yahuah, John 3 and 16. John 3:16 says, and I'm going to start at verse 14. Okay? To show you how they intertwine fiction with truth. Verse 14, and as Masha lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the son of Adam, son of man, has to be lifted up, so that whoever is believing in him should not perish, but possess everlasting life. Here we go. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only brought forth son, or as some translations say, begotten son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish, but possess everlasting life. It says, for Elohim so loved the world. He so loved the world that he gave his only brought forth son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish, but possess everlasting life. For Elohim did not send his son into the world to judge the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe is judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only brought forth son of Elohim. You know, if they had just left it at verse 16, I could understand. But verse 17 is what gives us the idea that Yahuah has promised salvation to the world, and that's just not true. We're going to examine that from the scriptures. It says, for Elohim did not send his son into the world. And by the way, when we see the word son there, that's because that's a bad translation, deliberate bad translation. It is intended to make us think of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, as they say. Okay? But Yahusha is not a son, because Yahuah truly has no son. And I know some people are probably picking up stones right now. But Yahuah had no son. So who was Yahusha according to the scriptures? Yahusha is the servant to mankind. The servant of mankind. Yahuah as servant to his creation. You see? Yahuah who came to serve his creation. You see? So the word son really, coming from the Abari word ban, is really in reference to Yahuah being servant to his creation. Servant to mankind. Servant to his people. He said, that's why he said, I came not to be served, but to serve. And so his people, his creation messed up, and so the nation that he chose, and why did he choose the nation? The nation that he chose went against his instructions, broke the contract. The nation that he chose broke the contract, and hence he came to rectify it. You see? And so he said, you know what? I created them, and so I'm going to correct the problem myself. I'm not going to put it off on anybody else, but I'm going to fix it myself. I am responsible because it was I who gave them life. And now they come and they make a mess of things, and so therefore I have got to go and make it right. And so he came as servant to his own, you see. Now remember that with Abraham, the scriptures tells us that Yahuah sought for a man. He sought for anyone who would obey. But only one man responded in obedience. And that man was Abraham. And because that one man responded to the voice of Yahuah, Yahuah said that he will choose him and his seed after him. And he will cause his seed to be as the sand of the seashore. And in him, all the scattered ones, in him, Abraham, all the scattered ones, all the goyim, the scattered ones, they translate as nations. In him, all the scattered ones of the earth will be Baruch. All the scattered ones to the nation will be Baruch. So only one nation was chosen. Yahuah chose only one nation because of the obedience of one man. Everybody else turned their backs on Yahuah, but only one man hearkened. Only one man listened. And as a result, because one man listened, then Yahuah chose that nation. Yahuah chose the nation that would come from that man. And that man being Abraham. And that's why the people are then known as Abari. That man, Abraham, his grandfather was Abar. If you look in the translations, you will see a man called Eber in the translations, Eber. But if you should research his name, you will find that his name is actually not Eber. His name is Abar. And from Abar came Abraham. But before Abraham's name was Abraham, his name was Abram. His name was Abram. And so Yahuah changed his name. And he said, your name will no longer be Abram, but your name will be Abraham. And Abar was the son of Sham, right? And we are the descendants of Sham, correct? And so that's how we are Abari, not Hebrew, but Abari, Abary, Abari, okay? Whichever way you say it, all right? And so Abraham was chosen. And because Abraham was chosen, out of Abraham comes this nation, you see. And so Yahuah devoted himself to this nation. Of all the nations of the earth, he devoted himself to this one nation because of this one man, because of the obedience of this one man. And so he loved this nation because of his friend, a man that he called his friend, Abraham. He loved this nation. And you know what he said about the other nations? He said he hates the other nations. That's what Yahuah said. Yahuah said he hates the other nations. Now there are people out there, family, who teach that Yahuah his hatred of the other nation is because of their skin color. There are people out there who teach that Yahuwah's hatred of the other nations is because of their so-called race. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth, because Yahuah don't hate anybody because of the way they look. You see, Yahuah does not hate anyone because of the way they look. Now, here's the other part to that. Here's the other part to that. Absolutely. He said that the other nations are as spittle to him. They're like spit on the ground to him. Nasty. That's what he is saying. When he looks at the other nations, they're nasty to him. They're sickening. They're like spittle to him. Spit on the ground. You see. Now, what's interesting here is that in Christianity will tell you that the Creator does not hate. You see. They will tell you that the Creator does not hate. They say, oh, he's loving, he loves everybody. You see, that's the doctrine of Christianity, that he loves everybody. Hence, they corrupt the translation to say that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, the Trinity, so that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And then they go on to say, because he did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him may be saved, they say. And nothing could be further from the truth. Yahuah never promised to save the world. You see, Yahuah never promised to save the world. He said, Esau he hates, but Yaakov he loved. Right? You see. Now, so when we see in there where it talks about him loving the world, Yahuah never said that he loved the world. He never intended to save the world. You see, he never intended to save the world. Let's look at Malachi chapter 1 and verse 3. The book of Malachi chapter 1 and verse 3. That's what they call Malachi. Malachi chapter 1 and verse 3. Let's look at that for a second. As a matter of fact, to draw contrast, let me just begin reading at verse 1. The message of the word of Yahuah to Yasharal by Malachi. I have loved you. Watch this now. The message of the word of Yahuah to who? To the nation that he loves. Right? To who? To Yasharal. The message of the word of Yahuah to Yasharal. That's who he's talking to. By Malachi, by his servant Malachi. He says to Yasharal, I have loved you, said Yahuah. I have loved you, said Yahuah. This is what Yahuah says to Yasharal. I have loved you, said Yahuah. But you asked, in what way have you loved us? Now, this is this stiff-necked, this is this ungrateful people. That's us, ungrateful. How quick we forget. You see, Yahuah does something splendid for us in one minute, and the next minute we absolutely and totally forget. We're no different today than we were then. We're no different here when Yahuah speaks to his people through his servant Malachi than when we were coming out of Matzrayim. How in one moment Yahuah parted the sea. In one moment he drowned our enemies. In one moment he was a cloud to us by day, sheltering us from the heat. In another moment he was a fire by night, leading our way. And then just a matter of a couple days, After seeing all of this great work by Yahuah, we get thirsty and we begin to murmur and complain, and we begin to talk about how much he has never done anything for us. You see, how many times we find ourselves in a place where we become worrisome, and we even begin to waver in our belief, where we begin to question whether or not Yahuah is truly real, simply because things aren't going the way we want them to go in a moment, when he has kept us for years upon years, when he has kept us for decades. But all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where you're having a little bit of trouble, or you're having a bit of difficulty, or you're going through some grief, and now all of a sudden you're wondering if Yahuah ever really did existed, when he has kept you all of this time, when he has shown himself to you so many times in the past. But all of a sudden you're going through something, and now you forget the greatness of Yahuah, and you want to question as to whether or not he exists, or as to whether or not he really loves us. He must hate me, and that's why I'm going through this thing right now. But yet we forget the goodness, all the good that he has done for us all those other times. That's how we are. That's how forgetful and stiff-necked and ungrateful we are. You see, that's Yasharal. That's the way we've always been. And that's why we go through the way we go through, because of our ungratefulness, because of our unthankfulness, and because of our forgetfulness. He says, I have loved you, said Yahuah. Yahuah said to us, I have loved you. I have loved you. But you ask, this is us, in what way have you loved us? Was not Ashu Yahakab's brother, declares Yahuah, and I love Yahakab? But I have hated Ashu, and have laid waste his mountains and his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness. So, okay, so in what way have I loved you? Okay, was not Ashu Yahakab's brother? That's who they call Esau. Was not Ashu Yahakab's brother? Didn't they come from the same womb? And yet I love your patriarch. I love your ancestor, and I hated his brother. Isn't that proof of my love for you? You see? So, right there we see a couple of things. We see that Yahuah chose one nation over the other, right? He chose Yahakab over Ashu, you see? And he said, not only did he choose Yahakab over Ashu, he said that he hated Ashu, but he loved Yahakab. So that also dispels the Christian myth that the Creator is only love. You know, in church they have a way of saying, because they have replaced the name of the Creator with the title of a pagan deity, God. God, God is not the Creator. It's an abomination. It's an abomination to refer to the Creator as God. God is not the Creator. One should never ever refer to the Creator as God. But the only reason why God comes up in my conversation is because they have taken the set apart scriptures of Yahuah, the set apart the bar of Yahuah, and where his name appeared, they have replaced his name with that abominable beast, God. You see. So in church you hear them talk about God is love. Well, God may be love even though God is incapable of loving. Because what is God? God is a dumb, good-for-nothing piece of artifact coming out of the twisted, corrupted imagination of filthy men. That's what God is. God is a fake mighty one, a false deity, deity of fortune. That's why wicked people who believe in these vain imaginations, believe in these fairy tales, would put on money. In God we trust. In the deity of fortune we trust. You see. Now, so, but they say What they did was in Christianity, they replaced the name, the true name of the Creator, with that of a pagan mighty one. Tell you that that the name of the Creator is God, and then say God is love. Again, God have no ability to love, because God is a dumb idol. A dumb idol. Have no ability to love, have no ability to hear, have no ability to speak, have no ability to grant compassion, to give compassion, have no ability to answer anything. You see, have no ability to do anything. Have no ability to do anything. Now, but they say the one they want you to believe is the Creator. They want you to believe that the Creator only loves and is incapable of hatred. But that's not what the Scriptures tells us. That is not what the Scriptures tells us. The Scriptures tells us that Yahuah hates the nations. And he hates the wicked. You don't hate nobody because of their so-called race. And Yahuah didn't create race. He created nations. You see? He created nations, did not create race. But he hates the nations, and he warned Yasharal not to be like the other nations. He warned the nation that he loved, the chosen nation, not to be like the other nations, you see. But what have we done time and time again? We go and we do and try to be just like the other nations. We hate ourselves. We hate the way Yahuah make us. We hate his word that he gives us, and we want to be like the other nations. So Yahuah says, but I have hated Ashu, and have laid waste his mountains and his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness. Now watch this. It's not just Ashu that he has hated. It's not just Ashu that he hated. He says, if Adum says, we have been beaten down, let us return and build the ruins. Yahuah of hosts said thus, let them build, but I tear down. And they shall be called border of wrongness, and the people against whom Yahuah is enraged forever. Now, Adum is the descendant of Ashu. Okay? I'm talking about the physical, the biological Adum. Because there is a biological Adum as well as there is a spiritual Adum. You see? Spiritual Adum today are the European nations according to the Scriptures. The biological Adum was an African nation. You see? And your eye shall see, and you shall say, great is Yahuah beyond the border of Yasharal. A son esteems his father, and a servant his master. And if I am the father, where is my esteem? And if I am a master, where is my fear? Says Yahuah of hosts to you, priest, who despise my name. But you ask, in what way have we despised your name? And we just continue on. You see, we don't see how we mistreat Yahuah. How ungrateful we are to Yahuah. You see, we don't see the corrupt things that we do. Yahuah responds, he says, you are presenting defiled food on my altar. But you asked, in what way have we defiled you? Because you say the table of Yahuah is despicable. All right. So here we see that Yahuah actually chose one nation over another. And not only did he choose a nation over another, he said he hated the other nation. Right? Let's look at the book of Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 23. Okay, again, the reason why we're looking at these again is because in John 3:16 we see it says that the Creator, they say God, and they want you to believe that that God is the Creator. They're saying, in essence, they're saying that Yahuah loves the world, and he did not intend. He didn't come to judge the world, but rather that all the world may be saved. And the question we're asking the Scriptures, is this true? Does Yahuah intend to save the whole world? Does he intend to save all nations? Is he committed to all nations? Are his instructions given to all nations? That's what we're pondering, right? Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 20. Leviticus chapter 20. There are actually many scriptures, family, that we can look at concerning this. We're only going to look at a few of them here this evening. Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 23. Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 23. Okay? What does Yahuwah say to his people, to his nation? Here Yahuwah is speaking to his chosen nation. Okay, remember now, we just saw in the book of Malachi where Yahuwah says that he has chosen Yahuah, he has chosen Yasharal, and he rejected Ashu. He hated Ashu. So out of Yahuah came us, Yasharal. So now all these instructions that we see are instructions given to Yasharal. So here Yahuwah is speaking to who? He's speaking to Yasharal. He's not speaking to any other nation. He's speaking here in the book of Uyakara. He is speaking to Yasharal. Okay, that's who he's speaking to. He is speaking to Yasharal. Okay? Now, Yasharal. So that's who he's speaking to. Here, this is what he says to Yasharal. Okay, this is what he says to Yasharal. I'm really looking at going to verse 23, but I'm going to start at verse 22. So this is what Yahuwah is saying to Yasharal, not to all the other nations, because he is not committed to the other nations. He has not given his instructions to the other nations. He is speaking to one nation. He is speaking to Yasharal, the nation he loved and chose, right? He said, and you Yasharal, shall guard all my Torah and all my right rulings, and do them, so that the land, not the world, but so that the land where I am bringing you to dwell does not vomit you out. Strong language. Woo. Man. You understand that the land was so set apart? The land, Yahuwah made the land so set apart that if defiled people came in there, the land would vomit them out. When unclean people come in, it would make the land sick to its stomach and the land would vomit them out. So Yahuwah warned his chosen nation. He warned his chosen nation. And he said to his chosen people, he said, and you shall guard all my laws and my right rulings and do them, so that the land where I am bringing you. Now if Yahuwah had chosen the world, would there be any need for him to choose a specific place, a specific land, a specific country? If he had chosen the world, would there be a need for him to choose a specific place? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If he had chosen the world, then any place in the earth would be good for us to settle, wouldn't it? Any place in the world would be fine for us to bring our sacrifices and our offerings, wouldn't it? But he did not choose the world. He did not choose the world, and because he did not choose the world, then he has a place set apart for a set apart people that's in the world. You see, he did not choose the world. Further evidence that he did not choose the world, right? So Yahuwah did not choose the world. If he had chosen the world, then there would be no need for a set apart place, because if he had chosen the world, then the whole world would be set apart unto Yahuwah. But Yahuwah did not choose the world. You see? Yahuwah did not choose the world. He chose a nation, and hence there is a set apart place for that set apart nation. Yes, indeed. So he says, and you shall guard my Torah and all my right rulings and do them, so that the land where I am bringing you to dwell does not vomit you out. Watch this now. Watch this now. And do not walk according to the instructions in the laws of the nation which I am driving out before you. For they do all these, and therefore I hated them. You see that word that they put there as loathed? I hated them. So here we find that Yahuwah hate people. Yahuwah hate nations. Right? He said, do not do as the nations that I'm driving out from before you, because I hate them. I hate them, Yahuwah said. He hates the wicked. You see? He said, I hate them. So again, you see there, family, Yahuwah don't love the world. So that must be that is clearly John 3:16, that's clearly a contradiction of Yahuwah's word. Because it claimed Yahuwah loved the world, and we keep finding that Yahuwah actually hates other nations. There's only one nation that he loves. Now, the only way Yahuwah hates every other nation, but he will love individuals out of those nations if they neglect, if they turn aside, and if they now hate their lawless traditions. The only way a foreigner can be accepted and be loved by Yahuwah is if that foreigner betray his own. The foreigner cannot continue to be in love with his customs, his heritage, and his pagan ways, and then claim. And check your mics for me there, family. The foreigner cannot claim to love Yahuwah, but then still be committed to the wickedness of his ancestor. The foreigner cannot claim to love Yahuwah and still want to celebrate the traditions, the pagan traditions of his ancestor. You see, to love Yahuwah, you got to be willing to hate everything that would come between you and Yahuwah. That's why he said that there'll be houses divided. He said he came not to bring peace, but a sword. There'll be houses divided because even within your own house, you will have those who choose wickedness over set apartness. And they'll fight against you when you seek to live set apart unto Yahuwah. They'll become antagonistic. They will seek to be an hindrance. They'll seek to persuade you to live contrary to the ways and the will of Yahuwah. That's why they're hated by Yahuwah. Yes, indeed. Even our children. Even our children. Now imagine this, family. If even among our own people and among our household, people of Yasharal, if even among our own people and among our own household, our own family members can become so hateful toward us, can you imagine a stranger turning to Yahuwah? How and really embracing Yahuwah and his word and the truth of Yahuwah's word, the history of Yahuwah's word, the history of Yahuwah's people. Can you imagine a stranger turning and embracing that? Can you imagine the kind of hatred that their family members, many of their family members, will hold against them? The level of hatred is great. the level of hatred is great. You see. Because keeping in mind, I'm not talking about from a black and white perspective. I'm talking about from all perspectives. Because the Caucasian was not the first people to enslave Yasharal. The Caucasians were not the first people to enslave Yasharal. You see, it was melanated people who first enslaved Yasharal. And not just once, but many times throughout history. You see? Many times throughout history. So can you imagine anybody who have been the oppressor of our people, any nation who have oppressed our people, hated our people, and then to find in their own household that there is one who actually is in love with the people that they hated so much that they tormented them, tortured them, murdered them, enslaved them, and now they have one in their household that is gung-ho for these people and actually speak the truth about how they've been treated, how they're being treated, and all of that. Can you imagine the disownment, so to speak, that would come with that toward that stranger, that foreigner who decide to join themselves to the people of Yahuah, to join themselves to Yahuah? The hatred would be great. So even among our own household, people turn on you when you turn to Yahuah. But imagine the foreigner and what they would go through if they truly commit their way to Yahuah. You see.
This conference is being recorded.
Seem like fuse are disconnected there momentarily, but without interruption almost, it seems. Okay, so he says, do not walk in the... Yahuah says, do not... No, I was saying, I see it keeps saying loading. Oh, okay. So Yahuah says, do not walk in the laws of the nation, which I am driving out before you, for they do all these, and therefore I hate them. But I say to you, you are going to possess their land, and I myself give it to you to possess it, a land flowing with milk. And here go that word honey we were talking about yesterday. It's not bee honey. Honey here, this is just translation. That's not the actual word that's used in the scripture. That's just an English translation. Okay? And what this is talking about Yahuah saying that I'm gonna give you a land overflowing with wealth, you see, and goodness. I am Yahuah your Elohim, who has separated you from the peoples. You hear that? Yahuah says that he has separated his nation from all the other peoples of the world. I am Yahuah who has separated you from the nations. That's what it's saying. I have separated this nation from all other nation of the earth. All the other nations of the earth. I have separated this nation from all the other nations of the earth. Let's go to another text. Let's go to the book of Yahuah chapter 10. Yahuah chapter 10, that's what they call Jeremiah. Yahuah chapter 10. Hear the word which Yahuah speaks to you, O who? O world? No. Hear the word that Yahuah speak to you, O house of Yasharal. Is Yahuah speaking to the world here, or is he speaking to one nation? He's speaking to one nation. Right? Yahuah is speaking to one nation. And what is that nation? You see. One nation. Hear the word which Yahuah speaks to you, O house of Yasharal. One nation. You see. Again, the Christians say that the prophet Yahu, they say Jeremiah, they say the prophet Jeremiah preached to the world. That's the idea you get when you go to church. that the prophet Yahu preached to the world. He was sent to the world, that the prophet Yashayahu, aka Isaiah, was sent to the world. That the prophet Yahuah, who they call Joel, was sent to the world. That the prophet Masha was sent to the world. That the prophet Shamuel was sent to the world. That Kapha was sent to the world. That Shahul was sent to the world. That Yahukanan was sent to the world. That's what Christianity tells us, that all of these prophets were sent to the world. That's what they tell us. But if you would take the time to read the scriptures, you will find that in every case, in every instance, the word is addressed to one particular nation. In every case throughout the scriptures, Yahuah is addressing one particular nation, not the world. You see? We're told that they were sent to the world. All these men were sent to the world, but that's not what the scripture says when we begin to read it. In every instance, the salutation is to one nation. In every instance, the salutation is to one nation. You will find nowhere in the scriptures, family, you will find not one instance. You will not find one instance in the scriptures where the salutation, where the greeting, where the opening of that letter, where the opening of that writing is addressed to the world. You will not find an instance. As we study the scriptures, we have to recognize that the way the scriptures are written is that you begin, when Yahuah sends his word, it begins with a salutation. It begins with a greeting. It greets the people. It identifies the people to whom he is speaking in every case. And if you would look at the scriptures, you will find that in every case, in no case do you find it addressed to the world. It is always to one nation. And then when that nation became divided into two, it is still to that one divided nation, never to anybody else. Never to anybody else. Never. You will not find one instance of that. It just doesn't exist in the scriptures. Okay, again, evidence that he did not come to the world, come to deliver the world, come to save the world. As a matter of fact, in a little bit, we're going to see what he says about when he comes to the world, what he's going to do. Okay, we're going to see that. The only promise he gives to the world is destruction, and we're going to see that. Thus says Yahuah, do not learn the way of the heathen, that's the other nations, and do not be awed by the signs of the heavens, for the heathen are awed by them. You see, the heathen, they worship, the heathen, the pagan, they worship the elements. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me put the definition. Let me pull up the dictionary for a second. Let me get the dictionary on the screen. Give me just a second. Let me just find the dictionary. Bear with me just for a second. Let me pull up the dictionary.
What have I done?
Let me get the dictionary on screen here. www.dictionary.com.
All right.
Okay. Dictionary.com, and I'm going to look up the word pagan. We're going to look at the definition of the word pagan. Okay. That's what the heathen are. The heathen are pagan. Okay. So let's look up, and you have proud pagans. You have proud pagans. So let's look up the definition of pagan. The wicked are proud of their wickedness. They don't shun it. They don't hide from it. Now let's see. Let's look at the definition of pagan. Okay, so Yahuah says, learn not the ways of the pagan. Okay. All right, so who is a pagan? Let's look at the definition. Let me show you the word I'm looking at. Pagan. There it is. Pagan. Noun. No longer in technical use. It used to be a time when it was widely used, but now, but there's a rebirth of it. You have people are saying that we need to get back to identifying ourselves as pagans. That's who we are, and we're proud of it. You know, we don't want to be politically correct anymore. We want to get back to who we are. Okay, and so there's a resurge, there's a rebirth of paganism. People proudly calling themselves pagan, you see, and telling you that Christianity is pagan. It's Christianity is our religion. It's pagan. It's ours. It's ours. We need it back. You see, stop whitewashing it or whatever, and just call it what it is. We're proud of it. You see, so one of a people or community observing a polytheistic religion as the ancient Romans and Greeks. Okay, that's who we're talking about here now, Christians. The ancient Romans and Greeks. So what was the religion of the ancient Romans and Greeks? What was the religion of the Romans and Greeks? Paganism. Okay, paganism. All right, heathens. Pagans equals heathens. And the religion of the pagans were paganism. Okay? The religion of the Romans and Greeks was paganism. Okay? Still is to this very day. Christianity is a Roman Greek religion. Okay? Now, it's not theirs originally. It's not theirs originally. It's really not. Where did they get it from? They got it from Egypt. Okay? So it's not theirs originally. That's why you hear me say from time to time that in my study of history, the Bible and the scriptures and archaeology, in my study of history, the Bible, the scriptures, and archaeology, boy, that might sound confusing to some people, but I'm going to say it again. In my study of history, the Bible, the scriptures, and archaeology, I say the Bible and the scriptures because they're two different things. In my study of the history, the Bible, the scriptures, and archaeology, I find that Christianity is nothing more than ancient Egyptian / Babylonian pagan sun worship wrapped up in a whole lot of ripped out of context scripture verses. That's what I find Christianity to be. That's the definition that I have arrived at concerning Christianity as I begin to examine Christianity, trying to figure out what is Christianity. And you know what drove me to begin to contemplate what Christianity really is was one day several years ago I was riding to work and I heard this man on the radio, this Catholic man on the radio, and he was boasting about the pagan roots of Christianity. He was boasting about it. This Catholic priest was boasting about the pagan roots of Christianity. And he was saying to this other Christian man on the radio that was interviewing him, he said, so, you know, many Christians think that Christmas is in the scriptures. He said, many Christians think that Christmas is in the Bible, he said. He said, Christmas is not in the Bible. That's what he said. And he began to tell where Christmas came from. Of course, he didn't tell the whole truth because he make it seem like it started in Rome. But it didn't start in Rome. It started in Egypt, you see. But so he began to tell, as a matter of fact, it even started before Egypt became a big civilized place. You see. It even started before Egypt, Christmas. But he began to talk about Christmas, and he talked about Easter, and he talked about all these other holidays that I was celebrating in the church. And I heard him talk, and the more I heard him talk, I was getting more and more angry at him. I say, how could he say such a thing? I know that the Bible talk about Christmas, and so you know what I did when I got home that evening? I went and I began to search through the Bible to find the word Christmas. Never dawned on me before that the word Christmas is not even in the Bible. Never dawned on me. And it wasn't until I heard him and I went searching for the word Christmas that I realized that, he wasn't lying about that one. The word Christmas is not found anywhere in the Bible. So then I thought, well, no, it's not about him lying. Now I begin to think, well, what else was he telling the truth about? So I begin to look at Easter. And I realized that even though the word Easter is mentioned in the Bible once, the word Easter is not found in the scriptures anywhere. I said, whoa. I wonder what else he is telling the truth about. And I begin to dig more and more, you see. And that began my journey out of Christianity. But this man was boasting about the pagan origins of Christianity. And he was telling this to a pastor that was interviewing him. And to this day, I'm sure that pastor is still sitting up there lying to people, telling them that Christianity is according to truth and according to scriptures. To this day, you see. So, looking at the word pagan, you see, let me read the scriptures that Akut Amunah just put up. Yahuah chapter 8 and verse 13. And it will come about that just as you were a curse among the nations, O house of Yehudah and the house of Yasharal, so I will save you, that you may become a baraka. Halalhu Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. So, one of a people or community observing a polytheistic religion as the ancient Romans and Greeks. That's one definition of pagan. Okay, now here's another definition. A member of a religious, spiritual, or cultural community based on the worship of nature. Watch that. Pay attention to that now. Pay attention to number 2, because we're reading from Yahuah chapter 10. Remember what Yahuah just told them? Remember what Yahuah just told them in Yahuah chapter 10 that we started reading? What did Yahuah say to the people of Yasharal? What did Yahuah say to the people of Yasharal? He said, do not learn the way of the pagans. What do the pagans do? Okay. What in the book of Yahuah chapter 10 that we just read, what does Yahuah say the pagans do again, family? He said, do not pay attention to the signs of the heavens, because that's what the pagans do, right? He said, do not pay attention to the things, to the signs of the heavens. That's what the pagans do. That's what Yahuah says, okay? He said, don't learn the ways of the pagans, right? Okay? Now watch this. So, a member of a religious, spiritual, or cultural community based on the worship of nature or the earth, a neo-pagan. Now watch this now. Number 3, disparaging and offensive. In historical context, a person who is not a Christian. No, this is where the this is where the what you call it now. This is where Twistianity comes in. This is where they work on confusing you. Because here now they want you to think that paganism is different from Christianity and Judaism and Islam, when in reality paganism is all of this, all three of them. All three of them is paganism. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they're all paganism, you see. So they say, this is Twistianity now. A person who is not a Christian, Jew, or Muslim, a heathen. But wait, what didn't they just tell you? What did they tell you in number 1? You see how contradictory they are to themselves? Because the Romans and the Greeks will tell you that they're Christians, right? So in number 1, you see, by the time they get down to number 3, they're contradicting themselves. In number 1, they said, one of a people or community observing a polytheistic religion as the ancient Romans and Greeks. The Romans and Greeks will tell you that they're Christians. And they'll proudly tell you also that they're pagans. A polytheistic religion, Trinity and minion religion. You see. Of related adjective, of relating to or characteristic of pagans. You see. Relating to the worship or worshippers of any religion that is. There we go again. Well, you get the idea, family. We ain't gonna meditate on the Twistianity here, but you get the point. Okay? You get the point. Now, let's go back to the text. Let's go back to Yahuah. Where we at? Yahuah. I got a lot of windows open because we have a lot to get to. Bear with me. Let me find myself. Let me find my place. Yahuah. So this is what Yahuah says. Hear the word which Yahuah speaks to you, O house of Yasharal, not the world, not the nations, but O house of Yasharal. Thus says Yahuah, do not learn the way of the heathen, the pagan, And do not be awed by the signs of the heavens, because that's what the pagans do. They're awed by the signs of the heavens. They worship the sun, the moon, the star. They worship fire, wind, water. They worship everything, you see. For the pagans are awed by them. That's why you have Sunday. That's why the church worship on the venerable day of the sun. You see, that's why they gave the days of the weeks: moon day, Sunday, moon day. Tuesday in honor of a pagan deity. Wednesday in honor of another pagan deity. Thursday in honor of another one, Thor. Friday in honor of another one, Freeze, whoever it is. And Saturn's Day, in honor of another pagan deity. You see. And Janus, January, in honor of a pagan deity, and February in honor of a pagan deity, and March in honor of a pagan deity, and on it goes, right? He says, for the prescribed customs of these peoples are worthless. For this is what they do. One cuts a tree from the forest, work for the hands of a craftsman with a cutting tool. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers so that it does not topple. They are like a rounded post, and they do not speak. They have to be carried because they do not walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they do no evil. You hear that now? Do not be afraid of their mighty ones, for they do no evil. People are spooked by the Christian mighty ones. Oh, I better not talk against Jesus, because bad things are going to come to me. Bad luck's going to follow me if I talk about Jesus. Bad luck's going to follow me if I talk about God. Stop being superstitious. These mighty ones that they worship have no power, Yahuah says. The mighty ones they worship have no power. Oh, well, I better not say anything about God, because I might burn in hell. The mighty ones are based on superstition, vain imagination. Your imagination have more power than their mighty ones. Your imagination is what have you thinking that things are real when they're not. Your imagination is powerful. That's why Yahuah tell you to cast down thoughts and imaginations, images of the mind. Because that mind, that heart is deep and wicked. You see, it will make you do things and then blame it on something else that ain't real. Oh, the devil made me do it. You see, they have no power. He says, what Yahuah say about them? They are like a rounded post, these mighty ones, and they do not speak. They have to be carried. If they had power, they could speak and they would be able to walk. They wouldn't need nobody to carry them, because they do not walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they do no evil. They do no evil, nor is it in them to do any good. They can't do anything. There is none like you, O Yahuah. You are great, and great is your name in might. None compares to him. Watch this. They are both brutish. You know what brutish there means? You know what it's actually saying. You know how the European enslavers, the rapists, when they came over, whether they went into Africa or they came here to the Americas and they saw the Indians, and you know how they said about the Indians and about the people from Africa, they say that they were what they say they are, they're savages. You see where they are brutish here? The word should be savage. Watch this. They are both savages and foolish. They're both savage and foolish. These people that make up these these powerless mighty ones. Yahuah says they are the savages and they're foolish. An instruction of worthlessness is the tree. Silver is beaten into plates, It is brought from Tarshish, and gold from Hupaz, the work of the craftsman and of the hands of the smith, draped in blue and purple. All of them are the work of skilled ones. But Yahuwah is truly Elohim. He is the living Elohim and the everlasting sovereign. At his wrath the earth shakes, and the nations are unable to stand his displeasure. At his wrath the earth shakes. I remember, every time something happens, there's an earthquake, a devastating earthquake, a devastating flood. The Christians are quick to try to defend their God. And they say, oh no, God didn't do that. God is loving. Yeah, I agree with them. God didn't do that. Because God can't do nothing like that. You see? Yahuwah says, at his wrath the earth shakes. When Yahuwah is angered, he shakes the earth, earthquake. He drowns the wicked. You see. He says, but Yahuwah is truly Elohim. He is the living Elohim and the everlasting sovereign. At his wrath the earth shakes, and the nations are unable to stand in his displeasure. Say to them, the Allah that did not make the heavens and the earth shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. The mighty one that did not make the heavens and the earth shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. He has made the earth by his power. He, Yahuwah, the true Allah, has made the earth and his powers. He has established the word by his wisdom, and has stretched out the heavens by his understanding. When he makes his voice heard, there is a roaring of waters in the heavens, and he makes vapors rise from the ends of the earth. The lightnings for rain he has made, and brings wind from his treasuries. Everyone is savage in knowledge, brutish in knowledge. Every smith is put to shame by his idol, for his molded image is falsehood, and there is no spirit in them, there is no life in them. They are worthless, a work of mockery. Every mighty one is a work of mockery. In the time of their punishment they perish. The portion of Yahuwah is not like these. The portion of Yahuwah is not like these. For he is the maker of all, and Yasharal, not the world now, but Yasharal is the tribe of his inheritance. Did Yahuwah say the world is his inheritance? Or did he say Yasharal is his inheritance? Did Yahuwah say the world is his inheritance? Or did he say Yasharal is his inheritance? So you see, family, that thing that says that Yahuwah so loved the world that he gave his son, number one, he didn't have no son. Number two, he didn't love the world. That's what we're seeing here, family. All of it is garbage. It's pork bologna. You see, green pork bologna. Bad stuff. You see? Now, the portion of Yahuwah is not like these, for he is the maker of all, and Yasharal is the tribe of his inheritance. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. Gather up your bundle from the ground, you who live under siege. For thus says Yahuwah, see, at this time I am hurling out the inhabitants of the land, and shall distress them so that they feel it. Woe to me for my breaking, my wound is grievous, but I say, this is my sickness, and I bear it. All right, let's continue on. Let's move on now to the book of Yahuah, chapter 3, verse 1 to 2. Yahuah, chapter 3, verses 1 to 2. There are many more scriptures, but I believe we get the point, right, family? I believe we get the point. Yahuwah don't love the world, is not committed to the world, has made no promise to save the world. Okay? Yahuah, they call Joel, chapter 3. Okay? Now, the book of Yahuah is very interesting. Very profound. In the book of Yahuah speaks of the locust. The locust is speaking about nations that Yahuah would bring against Yasharal because of our disobedience. But then at the end of bringing these locusts, these consuming locusts, and all these different types of locusts that Yahuah talk about bringing against Yasharal in the book of Yual, you see, the flying locust, the consuming locust, all these other types of locusts, these kinds of locusts that Yahuah would bring against his people. At the end of bringing all of these different nations against Yasharal, the greedy nations, the vile nations, the rapist nations, the corrupt nations, at the end of bringing all of these nations against Yasharal, then Yahuah says that he's going to reverse the curse, and he's going to take the curse off of his chosen nation, and he's going to put it upon all the other nations. Just like we see in the book of Tahalim, Psalms 83. All the nations that have been used to chastise us will be destroyed. All the nations. Now, so in the book of Yual, it's what they call Joel, chapter 3. For look, in those days at that time when I turned back the captivity of Yehuda and Jerusalem, when I reversed the curse, in those days when I reversed the curse, when I turned back the captivity, when I loosed their chains. For look, in those days at that time when I turned back the captivity of Yehuda and Jerusalem, then I shall gather all pagans, all the heathen nations, and bring them down to the valley of Yahushaphat. And I shall enter into judgment with them there for my people, my inheritance, Yasharal. Who is the inheritance of Yahuah? Is it the world, or is it a nation called Yasharal? I just want to ask the question one more time. Who is his inheritance? Is it the world, or is it the nation of Tudah? Tudah Aki Yasharal. Plain enough, I think. And I shall gather all the pagans and bring them down to the valley of Yahushaphat. And I shall enter into judgment with them there for my people, my inheritance Yasharal, whom they have scattered among the pagans. And they have divided up my land. Yes, they did. Divide up the land. They literally divided up the land. Do you know, family? Yes, you know. I've said it enough for you to know, but in case you didn't know, let me say it again. Yahuah said that they divided up the land, and they literally divided up the land. You know that the land was not divided until in the 1930s, when they divided up the land, and they call it the Middle East, and they call it Israel, and they call it separated the land and give it all kinds of names and appointed themselves portions in the land. They divided up the land. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Build the Suez Canal. They divided up the land. They divided up the land. Literally, Yahuah say they would, and they did. But what's going to happen to them? The day is coming, Yahuah says, for look, in those days and at that time when I turn back the captivity of Yehuda and Jerusalem, then I shall gather all pagans and bring them down to the valley of Yahushaphat, and I shall enter into judgment with them there for my people, my inheritance Yasharal, whom they have scattered among the pagans, and they have divided up my land. And they have cast lots for my people. Yeah, they have cast lots for my people. Yes, they did. You see, the nations of Europe, what they did was they cast lots for the people of Yasharal. Who's going to raid where and when? You see, they signed peace treaties among themselves to make sure that, everybody had their go, everybody had their turn, without breaking out in war against each other, as they raped and pillaged and stole. They have cast lots for my people, and have given a young man for a whore turn our men into whores. In other words, in more than one way, turn them into sodomites, and turn them into breeders. Lock a man in a pen and then bring all the women to him for him to impregnate them so that they can have children working on the plantations. And then after they have him locked in there, they go in and they partake of him. Men laying with the men of Yasharal. Buck breaking. Yep. Force him to lay with his own mother and his own children. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a young man for a whore, and sold a girl for wine, and drank it. Yes, they did all of this. And also, what are you to me, O Zor and Zidon, and all the coast of Philistia? Are you repaying me? And if you are repaying me, I would swiftly and speedily return your reward on your own head. For you have taken my silver and my gold, and brought my treasures into your temples. And the people of Yehudah and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the sons of Yahuah, to remove them far from their borders. You hear that? To remove them far from their borders. Who is Yahuah? That's interesting, family. You know who Yahuah is? Yahuah is the descendant of Yaphat, who have removed Yasharal far from their borders. Yaphat, the descendants of Yaphat. You see, the scriptures lays it out. You have removed Yasharal far from their borders. You know, if you watch the movie, no audio. Bear with me here just for a second. If you watch the movie, let's check. No audio for some reason. Check. YouTube audio is messing up. Okay. No, white's going in and out. Yeah, but if you watch the movie Amistad, in the movie Amistad, there was a scene where the lawyer was asking the main character in the movie, how far have you come? How far have you traveled? Because the slave thieves the enslavers were, their argument was that they had brought them from Cuba. Okay? What they were saying is that they had picked them up in Cuba. And the reason why they were saying that is because there were laws on the books now by this time that says that it was illegal for them to bring slaves from Africa, to ship slaves from Africa to America or anywhere, right? And that law was one-sided. We covered that a few weeks ago when we talked about the hanging of Captain Gordon. It was one-sided because if they did not get caught on the seas and they made it onto land, then the people, they were free to enslave the people. But if they got caught on the seas with their cargo, then they would have to face trial for breaking the law. So it was a one-sided, hypocritical law, still written to benefit them. But if you watch that movie, there is a scene in there where the lawyer is asking the main slave character, how far have you traveled? And he draw a picture on the ground of a map showing Cuba and America. And he said, the lawyer said to him, from here to here. So when the slave understood what he was asking him, he said no. As a matter of fact, he didn't even say a word. He just got up and he started walking. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked into darkness till you could see him no more. The point that he was making was, they have brought us from a very long way. So what they're telling you in court is a lie. They didn't just bring us from Cuba. They came and got us in Africa, from the west coast of Africa, and they brought us a very long way. You see? Well, that's exactly what Yahuwah's word is saying here. He says the descendants of Yahun, the descendants of Yaphat, they would come and they would bring my people a very long way. So that's what he says here in verse 8. You see, family, it's amazing to me, man, that there's still people out there today who claim that they're reading the scriptures, and then they want to argue and say that the descendants of the slaves are not the people of the scriptures, when the scriptures are so clear concerning the identity of who the people are, when the scriptures speak so profoundly and so clearly concerning the experience of the people of Yasharal. The people who claim to be the people of Yasharal have never had any of these experiences. Nothing close. They have never had any of these experiences spoken of by the scriptures. So what he says, what Yahuwah says, and the people, verse 6, the book of Yoel, chapter 3, and the people of Yehuda and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the sons of Yahun, to remove them far from their borders. See, I am stirring them up out of the place to which you have sold them. See, I am stirring them up out of the place to which you have sold them. And I shall return on your own head what you have done, and shall sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the people of Yehuda, and they shall sell them to the Shabbahites. I don't know what that word should really be. To a nation far off, for Yahuwah has spoken. Proclaim this among the pagans. Prepare for battle. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of battle draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Hasten and come, all you pagans, and gather together all around. O Yahuwah, let your mighty men come down here. Let the heathen, let the pagan be aroused and come up to the valley of Yahushaphat. For there I shall sit to judge all the pagans on every side. Put in the sickle, for the harvest has grown ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is filled, the vats overflow, for their evil is great. Crowds, crowds in the valley of decision. Crowds in the valley of decision. For the day of Yahuwah is near in the valley of decision. Sun and moon shall become dark, and stars shall withdraw their brightness, and Yahuwah shall roar from Zion, and give forth his voice from Jerusalem, and the Shamayim and Arats shall shake, but Yahuwah shall be a refuge for his people, and a stronghold for the children of Yasharal. Then you shall know that I am Yahuwah your Elohim, dwelling in Zion, my set-apart mountain, and Jerusalem shall be set apart, and foreigners shall not pass through her again. And it shall be in that day that the mountains drip with new wine, and the hills flow with milk, and all the streams of Yehuda shall be flooded with water, and the fountain flow from the house of Yahuwah, and water the Uhadi Shatim. Matzrayim shall become a ruin, and Adum a ruin, a wilderness, because of violence done to the people of Yehuda, whose innocent blood they shed in their land. But Yehuda shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem to all generations. And I shall avenge their blood, which I have not avenged, and Yahuwah shall be dwelling in Zion. Halahu Yahuwah. All right. Well, that's as far as we're going to go concerning Yahukanan, John chapter 3 and verse 16. Again, so we see that the promise of worldwide salvation is actually a fluke. It's a fraud, something written in. It contradicts all of Scripture. Okay? What we're going to do now is look at Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 8, and then I'm going to open up the mic, okay, to any comments or questions. Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 8. Leviticus 16 and verse 8. That was the next question. So let's go to that. Leviticus, I believe I have it somewhere here. Let me find it. Give me just a second, family. I think I already have it up somewhere. Bear with me just for a second. Leviticus 16. You know what? There was one more text that I wanted to read concerning the nations. I'm going to read it real quick. It's from Tahalim, Psalms 96 and verse 5. For all the mighty ones of the nations are idols, but Yahuah made Shamayim. So all the mighty ones are worthless. They're just simply idols. They have no life. They have no power. All right. Let's look at Uyakara, Leviticus chapter 16. All right, so bear with me. I'm going to come back to that. Leviticus chapter 16. I thought I had it up, but anyway. All right. I'm going to put it back on the screen here in a second. Leviticus 16 and verse 8. So it's a question from Aki William. I'm not sure if Aki Will is here today. We're going to look at it. Praise Father Aki Trevin. Praise Yahuah. Leviticus 16 verse 8. It says, and Aharon shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot for Yahuah, and the other lot for Azael. Okay? I'm going to read that again. And Aharon shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot for Yahuah, and the other lot for Azael. Now, there are people out there who teach that Azael is actually Shaitan. Okay, there are people out there who teach that Azael is Shaitan, and so it's implying that in some kind of twisted way, it would mean then that Yahuah is saying that they were to bring 2 offerings, one for Yahuah and one for Shaitan. So, or some people teach that Azael is one of the fallen ones, one of the fallen messengers, one of the fallen watchers. And in any case, that would mean that the people were to bring 2 goats, one for Yahuah and one for the adversary, this adversary of Yahuah, whether it be Shaitan or one of the fallen watchers. But the question is that the case? And what is this text actually speaking about? Okay? All right, let's take a moment to read a little bit more context, right? So let's back up to verse 1 of chapter 16 of the book of Uyakara. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe after the death of the 2 sons of Aharon, as they drew near before Yahuah and died. So they were killed because they went against the instructions of Yahuah. They were doing everything against the commands of Yahuah. They went and burned strange fire to Yahuah. In other words, they didn't make the incense the way that Yahuah prescribed, the way Yahuah commanded for the incense to be made. And so Yahuah called it strange fire. They burned strange fire. He didn't recognize what it was that they were burning. When Yahuah tell you to do a thing a certain way, that's the way you ought to do it. You don't go doing your own thing. That's like with people today living in captivity, going against the word of Yahuah, and call themselves keeping the feast in captivity. Yahuah never told you could. As a matter of fact, Yahuah tell you not to. So what you're doing, family, what you're doing is you're burning strange fire before Yahuah. Some people are going as far as actually slaughtering the goats in desert places, in the back of their houses and in their garages, you see, and roasting it. So they're roasting it before Yahuah, on the altar of Yahuah. You're burning strange fire before Yahuah. That's a dangerous matter. That's a dangerous thing. That's going against the instructions of Yahuah. You see, when Aharon and his sons, when they went and burned strange fire, Yahuah cut them off. And you be careful that you don't be cut off by Yahuah, because his word says the totally opposite of what you're doing. You see, his word says the total opposite of what you are doing. You see, and that's word. Look it up. And Yahuah spoke to Masha after the death of the two sons of Aharon, as they drew near before Yahuah and died. And Yahuah said to Masha, speak to Aharon your brother, not to come in at all times to the set apart place inside the veil, before the judgment seat. They say the lid of atonement. You could call it that too. That's where atonement is made to satisfy the judgment of Yahuah at that time, which is on the ark, lest he die, because I appear in the cloud above the lid of atonement. All right. With this, Aharon should come into the set-apart place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering and of a ram as a burnt offering. He should put on the set-apart linen. Now watch this. They use some strange words here, because that's not what the scriptures speak about. The kanaf, long covering, right? He should put on the set-apart linen, the kanaf, with, they say linen trousers, but it's not. The men of Yashral really didn't wear trousers. And that's the things. The translations like this is what lead to messed up teachings. Men of Yashral wore coverings. You more like robes, and that's why the next part of this is important. Okay, that's why the next part of this is important, of this verse is important. They say linen trousers and so on. The reason why I emphasize this is because we live in a different kind of society, and if we see Yahuwah's word through the eyes of the society in which we live, then we're gonna err when we in teaching Yahuwah's word. That's why you have people out there saying women can't wear pants at all because it's the man's garment. And that's really not what the scriptures is talking about. There's a clear difference, or there should be a clear difference between a man's garment and a woman's garment, certainly. But you have pants made for women and you have pants made for men, and there's a clear difference. Now, nowadays you have men wearing women pants, skinny jeans and all of this stuff. That's women's garment. You see, it's not a matter of that it's a pants, it's the cut of the pants, right? But that's another matter for another day. But because of the corrupt and the twisted translation, I need to make that clear. But you have people out there who teach this stuff, and it's really not what the scriptures is saying. You see. In any case, let's get back to this. And now, before the lid of atonement, which is on the ark. Now, with this, Aharon should come into the set-apart place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering and of a ram as a burnt offering. He should put on the set-apart linen shirt with linen. It's not trousers. That don't belong there on his flesh. And gird himself with a linen girdle. There's a reason why he was to wear this undergarment. That's what this is talking about, because he had to go up the steps to the altar, and lest he expose his nakedness. There are other verses that speak about that. And be dressed with the linen turban. They are set apart garments, and he shall bathe his body in water, and shall put them on. And from the congregation of the children of Yasharal, he takes 2 male goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. And Aharon shall bring the bull as a offering of transgression, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house. And he shall take the 2 goats, and let them stand before Yahuah at the door of the tent of meeting. And Aharon shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one for Yahuah. So one of the goats will be for Yahuah, and the other lot for Azael. Okay, now what is Azael, or who is Azael? We're going to talk about that here in a second. And Aharon shall bring the goat on which the lot of Yahuah fell, and shall prepare it as a transgression offering. But the goat on which the lot for Azael fell is caused to stand alive before Yahuah, to make atonement upon it, to send it into the wilderness of Azael. Now, that's kind of the way that's translated can be confusing also. And Aharon shall bring the bull of the... Okay, I'm going to stop there. So, 1 goat was to be slaughtered, okay, and as a burnt offering to Yahuah, because for the transgression of the people, but the other goat was for the wilderness, okay. In other words, this is a scapegoat. Okay, now before we talk any more about that, let's look at the word Azael for a second. Let's see, I have something already up on the screen. Let me get to it. All right, Azael. So Azael. Okay. Now the definition. Azael, it is a noun, but is it the name of a person or the name of a place? Okay, so I mentioned before that there are people out there who teach that it's the name of a person or a mighty one, or whatever the case might be, a messenger, fallen messenger, or whatever the case they teach. It is a noun, but it is really not the name of a mighty one, a messenger, a fallen one, fallen watcher, or anything like that. It is a noun describing the wilderness. Okay, let's look. So really the word Azael means to remove, right? Even in the Arabic language, which is the cousin of the Abari language, it means to remove. Okay, the word Azael means to remove. Okay, so what Yahuah commanded was for them to bring 2 goats. When it comes time for atonement for transgression, they were to bring 2 goats. And lots were to be cast to see which of those goats would be offered as a whole burnt offering to Yahuah for the transgression of the people, and which of those goats the blood of the goat of transgression would be put upon, and that goat then taken into Azael, into the wilderness of removal, is what it means. You see? So what was to happen? One of those goats was to be slaughtered, offered up to Yahuah as a whole burnt offering. The blood was to be taken and to be put upon the horns upon the head of the second goat. And that goat was to be taken deep into the wilderness, the place of removal, place of Azael. That goat was to be taken deep into the wilderness, and the one taking that goat into the wilderness was to ensure that he took him so far that that goat could not find his way back. Could not find his way back to the camp. Because if he found his way back to the camp, that means that he is bringing the transgression of the people back on them. You see, and the end is worse, would be worse than the former. So Azael simply means the place of removal, wilderness of removal. You see, the second goat was, in other words, the scapegoat, the goat upon which the transgression was placed, and he was taken, led into the wilderness. Yahuah became our scapegoat. He became the one upon whom who paid the penalty for our transgression. And then he went into the wilderness. He went into Gehenna. He went to the grave. You see, he went into the wilderness, and then he arose. You see, he arose, the price paid. He presented himself to his fullness, and then he showed himself to his people. You see. Now, so Azazel is not a mighty one. It's again, it means removal, but it's also used in reference to the wilderness to which the goat carrying the transgression of the people was to be led, so that he would not find his way back to the camp. So I hope that that clarified it for Aki. William, I'm not sure if Aki is here this evening, but I hope that clarified it. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and open the mic to anyone who might have any comments or questions on this evening. Let me just check YouTube just to make sure there are no praise Father Aki John, praise Yahuah. Just check YouTube to make sure we have no questions or comments. I want to say shalom to Akut Sandra Diverse. It's been a while since I've seen your name on the screen near Akut. I want to say shalom to you. Well, atonement simply means, really, it's a word that simply means payment, which also can be said as covering. Yahuah did pay a price. You see, the cost of transgression is death. The cost of transgression is death. And yes, and so he paid the price, and that price covered our transgression. So it's one way or another. I don't see a real big issue with the word. It's it's a financial transaction. It's a financial transaction. However, the payment had to be in blood, because Yahuwah says that without the shedding of blood, there can be no payment for transgression. You see. All right. Okay. Well, with that, I don't know if there are any right. So yeah, no payment. And so a payment covers the cost of a thing, so which is either way, whichever word we use, but more specifically payment, covering. I think atonement echoes the same point. It's just a matter of which word one chooses to use. Reading from Akud Sharon, it says, Dabarim 23:2. How do we know what is in our background, and if we repent for the sins, the transgressions of our forefathers, does Dabarim 23:2 still apply? No. So repenting and turning away, Yahuah does not hold the transgression of your forefathers against you, Akut. If you would repent and turn away from that, separate yourself from that. Akut Sharia wrote, in earlier teachings we have been watching, it sounded as though we had the Ruach now, whereas recently, yes. And that's something that Yahuah revealed through his word recently, because I was mistakenly misguided in thinking so until recently. That's something that Yahuah revealed through his word. And so while we are guided by Yahuwah's Ruach, we do not, Yahuah does not impart his Ruach, does not dwell in us in the lands of our captivity. But he does guide us, you see. He does guide us by by his Ruach, which is Yahuah himself. Yahuah Ruach does guide his people, but we are not immersed in his Ruach in captivity. So that is correct, Akut. That is correct. And so that's one of the reasons why I continue to say and to emphasize that it's important to note that we really and truly do not arrive at the truth, but instead we grow in it. And after we have inherited, many times, to the Aki, based on the things that we have been exposed to, it can skew and blind us to what is present. But in time, Yahuah corrects us, and we have to be willing to accept that correction, and to turn away from whatever folly we might have been in or exposed to. One of the difficulties for many people is that even they have a hard time stepping away from what they thought they knew but really didn't know. That's why many continue to exist in ignorance, Okay. Aki Keith, please go ahead, Aki.
Shalom, Aki.
Shalom to you, Aki.
All praise to Yahuwah.
Praise
I got a question,
Yes,
because
Aki.
I think it was a Coach Shar was talking about prayer yesterday. I think she was talking about depression, teenagers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, we have people that ask us to pray for them, family members, friends, or strangers.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, how do you pray for someone if they're not seeking Yahuwah? They're not of the house.
Yeah.
And do you go to Yahuwah and say, okay, because this is what I do. With someone that I know is not serving Yahuwah,
Yeah.
the first thing I pray for is, Yahuwah, is it your will to open their eyes and for them to return to you?
Yes.
Because to me, if I don't say that first, it's like I'm praying for a wicked person,
Yeah.
although that wicked person may be my family member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I start with that first. And if you do open the eyes, and then I make my prayer request.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right, okay?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And there are a couple videos on YouTube addressing that. Um, uh, it, but that is absolutely correct, Aki. So the difference with us is we don't know whether or not a person will come to a knowledge of Yahuwah. And so, if unbelievers ask us to pray, what we ask is, Yahuwah, just like you, Aki, may it be it according to your will, may you open their eyes, may they come to a knowledge of you, and let your will be done in their lives. A lot of times people are praying for Yahuwah to reverse something, for Yahuah to take away something when it's not. It is the will of Yahuah for them to be going through what they're going through so that perhaps they might come to a knowledge of Him. You see, and here it is. They don't want to go through that. They want it cut short, and then in effect they don't get what they're supposed to get from that situation. So there is a video on YouTube that goes into more detail. A video that I posted a few years back. Don't remember the title of it right now, but it had to have to do with praying the will of Yahuah and prayer. One is on prayer, one is on the will of Yahuah. Both of them are there, and maybe I'll at some point I'll replay them in the room, but they address the specific thing you're speaking about, Aki. The other thing too, when we pray for unbelievers, they might have all kinds of different people praying for them, and when their prayer get answered, they don't give Yahuah the esteem. They give it to Jesus because that's who they're more closely aligned with, and so different things like that. But that's a great question, Aki, and I believe your approach is absolutely on point.
And let me just say one more thing, Aki, and that is, I think by saying it that way, we don't get caught up, even if it's a family member, son, daughter, wife, or no matter who it may be, so that we understand when we pray, and if it doesn't manifest in our time, that we don't get upset about it. Like, Yahuah, you didn't hear me? Yahuah, like, yeah, I heard you, but do you remember what you said to me?
Yes.
It's my will, and this person's not coming in, so you're praying for someone wicked, it ain't working.
Yes.
So, tada, Aki, tada.
Praise Yahuah. Tada to you, Aki. Yes, go ahead, Akud Shar. Please go ahead, Akud. I see your question, but I'm going to let you come to the mic, and then I'll respond.
Shalom, Mashpaka. Can I be heard, Aki?
Yes, you can, Akud. Shalom.
Okay. Sounds like I can barely hear you.
Oh.
Now, when I said what I said yesterday, of course, I'm talking about praying for our children that are in the Word, because although our children are in the Word, doesn't mean they won't have, depression or anxiety. Those things can still be on them because we are in captivity, and because of this wickedness that's abounding, I guess we are still susceptible to getting, the diseases of Matzraim because of our wickedness, right? But so my thing is praying for having Yahuah to rebuke those spirits of, depression and all that stuff on our children that we are trying to raise up in Him, not just any old. Like I have family members that are wicked, don't even want Yahuah.
Yes.
My sons don't want Yahuah, so I ain't even talking about them.
Yes.
But I don't know if I needed to clarify myself, but I just feel like you need to. So, and I'll shalom everybody, and I'll release the mic. Did you want to say something?
Hello, Aki, and shalom, Mishpaka.
Shalom to you, Aki. Great to hear you.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, okay. Well, first and foremost, Aki, thank you so much for breaking this John 3:16 thing down, because it's like, growing up Catholic and hearing all the lies, and I mean that was their slam dunk on you. You watch these football games, and when they kick the extra point, because they know they're on TV, they hold up that John 3:16 sign. Yes. I mean, so Tuda, man, thanks so much for breaking that down. Very informative, and also about the two goats. Key, I can't overemphasize my gratitude for the way you break things down, because, in all due respect, I looked over to my wife and I said, there's no way I would have got that out of that by reading that. And so I again, thank you so much for breaking things down. And the way you go into history, the way you look into definitions, I mean, you just you search for the truth, and that's just
All praise to
that
you,
it's
Lord.
just a wonderful. And I know we give, honey, we give all praise, glory, and esteem to Yahuwah, but I thank Yahuwah for giving you the ability to do what you need to do and cope with what you need to cope with. I'll release the mic.
To the key, praise Yahuwah, to truly to Yahuwah be all esteem, to Yahuwah indeed be all esteem. And as a Kud Shar mentioned, and I'd asked, by the way, I meant to say something, and I want to say it before I forget. Aki Keith, I want just an ounce of your energy, man. I'm telling you, I just want 1 ounce of it. It's contagious. I love it. um, but you know, yes, indeed, he get me going every time too. I love it. But you know, as Akud Shar had said earlier too, you know, Yahuwah says that he doesn't even hear the prayer of the wicked. That's what Yahuwah says. He doesn't even hear the prayer of the wicked. Now, keeping in mind, we are limited in our knowledge, right? And we don't know, because simply because somebody might be living crazy today, don't mean that we have the power or the ability or the knowledge to declare that, you know, they will alwaah be the way they are and they'll never come to a knowledge of Yahuwah. And that is why whenever we pray, it's important for us to ask that Yahuwah's will be done. Recognizing that we are limited in what we know. We are very limited in knowledge, you see. And we do not know, we don't know nothing near what know nothing we know not near what Yahuwah knows. I don't know how to say that best, but I just want to emphasize how little we do know, you know. And so it's important for us to ask that Yahuwah's will be done in every situation, you know. And so like Yahusha, you know, Yahuwah manifested in flesh. When he prayed, he said, I do not pray for the world. There we go again. He said, I do not pray for the world, but I pray for the elect, for those who will serve Yahuwah. Those I pray for, you see. And so that is our prayer, you know. We do not pray for those who have already elected not to serve Yahuwah. You know, the prophet Yahu said that even before I was formed in my mother's womb, he knew me, Yahuwah. You see, and that's the foreknowledge of Yahuwah. Yahuwah says that he creates some for destruction. You see, he creates some for esteem and he creates some for destruction. And how he does that is through his foreknowledge, something that we do not possess. You know, and so there are times when people may ask us to pray and we not knowing, we pray that Yahuwah's will be done. Now, of course, the person who lack belief is not comfortable with that. The person who lack belief, when they ask you to pray for them, they don't want to hear you say, well, may Yahuwah's will be done. No, that's the last thing they want to hear. They want to hear you proclaiming stuff, you see. But the greatest prayer we can pray when we don't know is to ask that Yahuwah's will be done, you see. A simple prayer. Yahuwah, may your will be done. And the person who believes is Amunah will allow him to accept that, you see, to receive that, to appreciate that, you see, and to honor that. And so that's absolutely true. Of course, as I mentioned, there are a couple videos on YouTube I have on YouTube that speaks about that in more detail. And I encourage you, family, to look them up. They're on there. I don't remember their titles right now, but if you want to hear a little bit more, you can go to those videos. All right. Now, let's see. I'm missing some questions here. Let me look at YouTube. Just try to see the questions that are there. His true name. Shalom to you, Akut. Does Acts 2:38 apply today? As asked earlier. Okay, so again, there's a video I just did on YouTube. You know, again, that's something where we erred mistakenly. We erred thinking that immersion was something that was okay in captivity, in the land of captivity, but it's not. So the settings of Acts 2:38, where were the people at? They were in the land, and specifically they were at the place. They were in Jerusalem, you see. And where did that take place? They were immersed in the Ruach, but where were they at? They were in that place where they needed to be according to the scriptures. You see, so if you go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36 and chapter 36 and chapter 38, you will see again there too where Yahuah says that in that place is where he will immerse his people both with water and in his Ruach in the land. So you know, and there are the scriptures again that goes in hand to validate that. So for example, when you go to the book of Acts, where you see where that took place, they weren't in any foreign land. They were actually in the land, and that's why it took place. That's how it was able to take place, because outside of that it don't happen according to the scriptures. But again too, there's a video on YouTube that will give you more detail on that. I don't remember the title, if I titled the video. I hope I did. But it will give you some more details on that. To you, Akut, for yes. So the appointed place is very important. Appointed place and appointed time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything that Yahuah does, it's done according to his appointments. His appointments are very important. Appointed time and appointed place, very important, very necessary to the will of Yahuah. You see, everything in its time. He is very orderly. You see, he is an alakim of order, not disorder. You see. It's the indwelling of his Ruach in us. It also says they spoke on other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance. Yes, that's another matter too that I'll speak on here very briefly. So when it says that they spoke in other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance, you know, Christianity tells us that they were speaking in, let's see, something they say in church a lot. I can't think of anything the way the stuff they'd say in church a lot, but it's not what you hear in church. You see, when you go to the book of Acts, what you found is that there were people of Yasharal who had been scattered to different nations, as the scriptures tells us that they would. Some of them were speaking Greek, some of them were speaking Persian, they were speaking all kinds of other languages. And so what Yahuah did was Yahuah caused them to speak in the different languages so that the people of Yasharal who had come to Jerusalem would have been able to understand. And so they all heard them and understood. They spoke in their languages so they could understand. And that was a supernatural work of Yahuah. He allowed them to speak in the different languages for the different lands. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. They spoke in the language of the lands, even though they had never set foot in those lands. Yet Yahuah allowed them to speak so that the people of Yasharal who had assembled in Jerusalem for the time of the feast, for the appointed time at the appointed place, so that they would understand the word of Yahuah. You see. Yeah. Yeah. Slain in the spirit. All right. Now, Yeah, same thing Akud Yolanda said, babe, what you were just saying. I'm talking about heavenly language in church. Right. All right. So mhm. Okay. All right, family. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, okay. Can I wear a shirt that says Baylor College of Medicine, uh, Dad, Mom? Um, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm just from a personal perspective here, I'm not even speaking from the perspective of the scriptures because I can't think of a scripture that uh, you know, Baylor College of Medicine. I don't see an issue with wearing the shirt. I don't see an issue with it. Now, you do have that medical symbol that is actually the symbol of a pagan deity. Now, if that's included on the shirt, then that's another matter. From a personal perspective, I wouldn't, simply because it dons that symbol, I wouldn't wear it, because I know what the symbol represents, but if it simply says that, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't necessarily see uh, an issue just with that. You're right. No symbol. I really don't see an issue with it per se. You know. By the way, I should say that while in the medical industry they do a lot of wickedness, right? But at the same time too, because they do some wickedness and they do a lot of wickedness in the medical industry. That's just the way it is. That's the truth. But and because they do, some people are totally against any kind of medication. I don't take that position. Um, there are some medications, of course, that I wouldn't mess with, and I wouldn't encourage anybody to mess with. As a matter of fact, anything natural that you can use and avoid medication, period, that's the best way to go. But some people might take a stance or a position where, under no circumstances, would they go see a doctor. And give if I could see if we had options, but as a people who don't have many options right now, sometimes it comes down to that where you might have to, but sometimes you need to go just to see what's happening, and then you can then make a decision as to what herbs and spices are and whatever else you can then use, to treat your condition, as opposed to going on their medications. So uh, right. So simply just I was watching something the other day. It was about medicine in Africa, and this guy, what he would do, the people would go see him, and what he's really practicing is like witchcraft. But he would take the chicken. They would have this ceremony. He would take the chicken. He'd pray over the chicken. They'd do this whole thing for everybody that comes, you know. And after they do this whole shindigle, then they would kill the chicken. They would cut the chicken open, and if the person is complaining that their stomach is hurting, they would look at certain things inside the chicken's stomach, and if something looks somewhat abnormal, they would say, now this is what's going on in your stomach. And then I don't buy into that either. You see what I'm saying? There are advances that technology that can be used to allow you to know better what's going on in your body. And I don't see anything wrong with going to the doctors and using that technology to try to understand what's happening inside your body. But that don't mean that you have to get on the medications that they're prescribing. Because the reality is, the bottom line is that they seek to keep us in darkness concerning what really heals, because the medication they prescribe don't heal us. It serves to keep us dependent, to keep their pockets lined. And so we've got to use wisdom in that, you see. um uh okay. Responding to uh um Akucharia questions about pictures. I was making slideshows for my kids to show them I miss and love them. Can't make contact. Is this wicked? All right. So I have a video on YouTube concerning images and mighty ones, and family. I like to emphasize to people that we're a people living in captivity, and Yahuah knows where we're living. He knows the conditions that we're living under. Um, Now, when it comes to images, Yahuwah commanded people not to make any images of themselves, right? And that's a fact that's laid out for us in the scriptures. You see how people run around with their Jesus pictures and stuff, and and their God pictures and all whatever pictures they have. Even if Jesus, even if that was truly the right picture, that's an abomination to Yahuwah, he says, right? He tell us not to make any images of him, and he tell us not to make any images of ourselves. That's what the scripture says. Unfortunately, Christianity keep us in the dark about that. However, we're a people in captivity, and in many cases, in many cases, there are some things that we can't avoid. And as a matter of fact, even when it comes to pictures, there are some cases where they might be of help. They might be of assistance, right? So what it comes down to is, what is your motive? Why are you doing it? You see, some people take pictures and it's really about self-worship. It's really about esteeming self. They just can't see themselves enough. They just praise themselves. They worship themselves, right? And that's their purpose for taking pictures. There are some people, they litter Facebook with pictures. Now that's foolish. That's very foolish for you to be just throwing up your pictures on Facebook. You know why it's foolish? Because Facebook is built with a system that has facial recognition, and your picture goes into a database. Every picture you post on Facebook goes into a database. Now, you all are familiar with Akil Yasha and his wife, and how they charged them with, they made up charges against them. Charged them with terrorism when they ain't terrorized nobody. Right? Now imagine if simply because of the way you believe, they say that they put you on a terrorist list. They don't need to come to your house to find a picture of you or anything like that. They already have your picture from Facebook in a database. And if they want to find you, now you're riding down the highway. They have cameras with facial recognition features in their billboards. They have it all over the place. You're just making it easier for them to frame you, do whatever they want to do to you. Again, there are things that are necessary, right? And even with Aki Yahakab and them, if they gave him 13 years, and his sentence would have been greater if he did not have pictures and videos that contradict what they were saying about him and his family. Okay? I mean, they came into court and just straight up lie against them, saying the baby couldn't walk, baby can't crawl, and all kinds of stuff. And if he didn't have pictures and videos of these things, even though they gave him 13 years, they probably would have gave him, I don't know, 100 years.
Because they took their kids and wouldn't allow
Yeah.
them to take them to the doctors so they can get their own evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But had it not been for those photos and videos,
Mm-hmm. So I believe in all things, in everything that we do, we must use wisdom, and motive is very important. Motive is very important. Why do you do what you do? You see what I'm saying? Is it about self-praise? Is it about seeking attention? Is it about showing off? You see what I'm saying? Motive is very important. So we always got to check our motives. So given the condition and the state that we live in, I believe we must use wisdom. You see? Yes. Yep, they will. Yes, and they do. Yep, absolutely, Akut Anitra. Absolutely. Absolutely. They do it with still photos, and they do it with video. Absolutely. You see, you can't believe everything you see in the news. You can't believe every report that you read. You see. They'll take your words, they piece them together and make you sound like you say stuff that you never said. You see. Now, so, concerning that Akut Sharia, I'm sure probably even in your case, it's a good thing that you have some of those pictures and videos, but coming to a knowledge of what Yahuah says about images and imagery, your motive, you really must question your motive. Why do you do what you do? You see, why do we do what we do? Yes. So I think that it's helpful in this situation, Akut. I believe it's helpful for, what's amazing to me? These people say that they're concerned about the children. So they come into your home and they rip the children out of your arms, right? And then they put them among strangers. Strangers who, quite frankly, cares nothing about them. And somehow they're looking out for the children. And that's a bag of garbage. They don't care nothing about the children. You see? They just want you to conform. And if you don't conform, then we're going to inflict pain and suffering on you and on your children. You see? That's all it is. That's all it is. You see? That's really all it is. Really not concerned. Wow. That's sad. That is sad. I think I'd spend my days and my nights just watering my couch with tears, not seeing my children for all that time, knowing that they've been stripped away from me against, my desire. Yeah, so, we got to use wisdom in all that we do, family. We got to use wisdom in all that we do. You see. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, family. Yeah. The one with the picture, the Google Earth picture. Yeah. Yeah, they do. Indeed. Oh, no problem, Akut. Please go ahead. What about sports, Aki? Should we be watching sports? Sports, I mean, you can't be no fanatic for sports. I'm not into sports, right? But the word fan is short for fanatic, okay? And if you're going to be a fanatic for anything or anyone, let it be a fanatic for Yahuah. It be a fool for Yahuah, not for some overpaid person chasing a ball up and down the field. With that said, I believe that a little entertainment is good for the mind. A little relaxation is good for the body. Nothing wrong with playing some ball, you see, but really, when you look at sports in America, it's not just sports. It's really worship. I see what's his name lost his jersey, whatever that guy's name is, the quarterback, and his jersey is worth, no, not Kaepernick. If Kaepernick lost his jersey, they would say, hey, when you find it, burn it. But Brady lost his jersey. Somebody stole it. Jersey is worth millions of dollars. And the FBI got involved. Yeah, somebody stole it. The FBI got involved and they retrieved his jersey. Now, in the meantime, you got people going missing, kids going missing, and the FBI ain't involved trying to find missing people. But because, these missing little babies, but because this is a idol. That's the other thing, family. Idols. That's what they call these players. People call them their idols. Idols. What does the scripture say about idols? Idols. Right? They call them their idols. You have musicians, they're idols, American idols. You know? That's an abomination to Yahuah. So, nothing wrong with watching a little sports, participating in a little relaxation, but, if you're to the point where you can't live without it, I see people, just recently this boy was arguing with his mom somewhere over a football game in Texas, I believe it was, and he stabbed her to death over a football game. And that happens from time to time. You see? Because it's really a thing of worship. It's really serious. You see? But nothing wrong with watching a little sport, you see. But don't be so steeped in it, and overwhelmed by it that is as if you can't live without it, That's what I would say. And a lot of people are distracted and are ignorant to a lot of what goes on because all they're tuned into is sports. You see? Just wanting to be entertained. They're kept busy by nothing. Oh, yeah. You know what, family? I didn't realize the time had gotten away from me so badly. I've got to go pick my son up from work. Once again, I want to say Tuda for being here. Tuda for your questions and your participation. You're welcomed, Key and Akut. And praise Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. Look forward to seeing you soon. When we come together once again, I'm going to be sending out to the family, to those who are members of Rob, I'm going to be sending out the recordings, the Rob recording from our last meeting. I'll be sending it out. Hopefully tomorrow evening I'll be able to get home and I'll send that out to you, so you can look for it in your mailbox. And concerning Rob also, this week I want to start working on, I'm going to work on getting it registered, and we'll talk more about that when we come together for our meeting. But I'm going to go ahead and say Layla Tub family. I've got to go get my son. And so, Yahuah willing, do look forward to seeing you all soon. Shalom. Layla Tub family.